Today, I'm going to experiment with creating dark ambient sounds using the ELZ1 Play, similar to what you've just heard. The sounds I will create are 4 types: drone, pad, ATMOS, and noise. After making each sound, I will use the looper function to create a dark ambient track. There are a few key points for making each of these sounds on the ELZ1 Play, so be sure to watch this video until the end. Drone. Let's start by making the drone sound. Select the standard oscillator for the synth engine. Set the oscillator type to a sawtooth wave. Leave the duty at 50%. Since I want a subtle pitch wobble, I'll set the mod type to LFO and assign it to pitch. The wobble is a bit too intense, so let's slow it down. Set the wavelength to 4/8 and use a triangle LFO waveform. Now we have a slight pitch wobble. I want a slightly slow attack, so I'll set the amp envelope to about 500 milliseconds. I'll also set the release to a longer 1000 milliseconds. It doesn't quite sound like a drone yet. Next, I'll use unison to thicken the sound and add some more texture. Now it's starting to feel more like a drone. Unison lets you add up to 4 voices. You can set the octave and detune for each. First, let's add 2 detuned sounds to the current basic waveform. Turn on unison 1 and 2. Since we won't change the pitch, set pitch to 0 and detune to -5 and +5. Let's hear how it sounds. It's getting a bit thicker with some added texture. Next, set the remaining 2 voices 1 octave down with detune at -7 and +7. Turn on unison 3 and 4 and set both to -1 octave. Adjust the detune as well. Now it's starting to sound more like a drone. The pitch wobble is still too strong, so let's adjust that. Considering that I'll be layering pads, ATMOS, and noise later, it would be best to cut the higher frequencies, which are a bit harsh on the ears, by applying a low-pass filter. I'll choose a first-order low-pass filter, LPF6, and set the frequency to 34. Feel free to adjust this later. Now let's adjust the effects. Let's start with the reverb. The version 1.1 firmware has added ambient reverb, but I'll introduce that later. For this drone sound, I'll apply 2 different reverbs as a technique to extend the reverberation time. First, select Reverb in the Delay Reverb module and set the mix to 50 and decay to 100. Next, in the Reverb Master module, select Tunnel Reverb. I also want a hint of shimmer, so I'll slightly increase the shimmer parameter. Depending on the scene, if you want to add width to the sound or make it lose its centered positioning, adding stereo chorus can be effective. Let's try it out. It really broadens the sound. If the sound is playing but you want it to feel less present, or if you want to blur the contours of the sound, the ambient reverb added in the version 1.1 firmware is useful because it lets you adjust the dry components of the sound. For example, you can select Ambient Infinity. When the balance parameter is at 0, you'll hear a 50-50 mix of dry and wet sound. Move it towards the negative side to reduce the wet component, or towards the positive side to gradually reduce the dry sound, resulting in a fully wet sound. This way, you can blur the contours of the sound, making it present but hard to pinpoint its source, creating a unique atmosphere. Pad next. Let's make a pad sound. To create a thicker sound using unison, and considering that I'll be playing chords, I've chosen the 8-bit wave memory engine, which has a maximum of 20 voices. First, select a slightly asymmetric sawtooth wave, bank 17, under wave. Feel free to choose a different waveform if you prefer. Set the detune to 16. Adjust the amp envelope. For a slightly slow attack, set attack to around 260 milliseconds, sustain to 100%, and release to about 600 milliseconds. Now let's add some texture and thickness using unison. First, layer the same octave with detune set to 10. Second, layer it with a pitch set to either -5 or +7. This is up to your preference. Set the detune to -10. Third, layer it 1 octave down. Fourth, layer it 1 octave up. Let's skip the filter for now and apply the reverb first. In the delay reverb module, add reverb and set both mix and decay to their maximum for a long reverb. It can sometimes be good to match the reverb type across layers, but feel free to choose your preferred reverb here. I like plate, so I'll select that and set the mix to 100. I'll also add stereo chorus to adjust the parameters to my liking. As the sound is still too harsh, let's apply an LPF. Choose a second order filter, LPF 12, and set the cutoff frequency to about 61. I want a shimmer sound in the reverb, so I'll slightly increase the shimmer on the plate reverb. I want the filter to gradually open when I play the keyboard, so I'll set the filter mod type to envelope and assign it to the frequency parameter. Set both attack and decay to 5000 milliseconds, with sustain at 0%, and increase the release. Let's play it. When you press the keys, the filter gradually opens and then slowly closes. It feels nice, doesn't it? Now, let's create an ATMOS type sound. This time I want to make a sound reminiscent of retro computers with their characteristic beeps and chirps. First, select the FM synth engine. Leave the algorithm as number 1. The initial settings for each operator are fine as they are. With the default setup, pressing the keys only produces a sine wave, so we'll randomize the ratios of operators 2 through 4. Set the mod to LFO and assign it to ratio, with the LFO wave set to random. Adjust the rate and depth accordingly. Since you can add up to 4 modulations, let's also randomize the ratios for operators 3 and 4. By giving each a different rate and depth, the sound will become more complex. Increasing depth will make the ratio fluctuate more, resulting in a wider pitch variation, enhancing the retro computer vibe. It's quite an interesting sound, isn't it? Next, set the release to around 2500 milliseconds. For the filter, let's cut off the low frequencies unnecessary for an ATMOS sound. Choose HPF 6 and adjust the cutoff frequency. Now, let's tweak the effects. I'd like a bit of distortion when pressing the keys, so I'll choose Overdrive. Oops, it's too distorted, so let's lower the gain. Lower the tone as well to soften the sound. This way, pressing the keys will add a bit of distortion, providing sound variation. As it is, the sound is too centered, so I'll use Auto Pan to make the sound randomly shift from left to right. Set the mod type to random and adjust the rate and depth. If you want the sound to spread more to the sides, increase the depth. For this, I set the depth to about 50. I want a bit of a dreamlike feel, so I'll set the reverb to tunnel, adjust the shimmer, and add an octave up sound. It sounds like a good ATMOS sound now. Finally, let's create the noise layer. This time, I want to make something that sounds like a river with crickets or birds chirping. We need to produce both the river sound and insect chirping with a single synth engine. Thinking about how to do this, I found that I could achieve this by cleverly using the super oscillator, even though it's not the intended use. So let's select the super oscillator. Normally it's specialized for super saw sounds, which typically sound like this. This engine has noise and several oscillators. I'll use the noise for the river sound and the oscillators for the insect chirping. First, turn down the level for each oscillator. Now we only have the noise. Set the noise to white noise and increase the level. This sound will serve as the river. Next, set the mod type to LFO and assign it to +8 LVL. Change the LFO wave to random so the +8 oscillator volume changes randomly. Adjust the rate and depth. Increase the keyboard octave by +2. It's also good to increase the +8 oscillator's detune parameter to make it sound more like insects. Adjust the envelope settings. Set attack to 0, sustain to 100, and release to 5000 milliseconds. Since there's still too much high end in the noise, let's use an LPF 12 to cut it. Adjust the parameters. As it is, it sounds more like rain than a river. To make it more like a river, I'll use overdrive. Without the effect, it sounds like rain, but adding overdrive makes it more river-like. You can also tweak the tone if needed. By the way, choosing distortion makes it sound like a waterfall. Doesn't it sound like a waterfall? Since I want to make it sound like a river, I'll go with overdrive. Now it sounds quite river-like. Next, let's add reverb. I've chosen Ambient Hall, one of the new additions. Adjust the balance so it's slightly on the wet side. It sounds quite nice as it is, but I'll use the arpeggiator to add some variation to the pitch of the insect chirping. When using the arpeggiator, keeping the voice mode in poly will cause overlapping voices due to the long release, so set the voice mode to mono. Set the arpeggiator to up +2 octave. Now, it will automatically play sounds up to 2 octaves higher than the pressed keys. For this, I set the time to about 750 milliseconds and the gate to around 80%. Let's hear it. It sounds good, right? Now, let's layer everything using the looper. First, press the looper key and select an empty looper. I've set the tempo to 60 this time. Press the X key on the mixer screen to bring up the looper settings screen. First, decide on the number of bars for each track. This time, I'll set drone and pad to 8 bars and ATMOS and noise to 16 bars. The number in parentheses is the maximum number of bars, so you can set it to any value below that. The maximum number of bars depends on the memory capacity and tempo. The faster the tempo, the more bars you can record. Also, when layering ambient sounds, make sure to set the record end to record to overdub. This will automatically switch from recording to overdubbing, so it will keep overdubbing unless I explicitly stop the recording. Since I'll be recording reverb tails and sounds with long releases, this is very useful. Set Rec Trig to keyboard. The initial recording will start as soon as you press the keys. Set the metronome volume to around 2 at first. Let's start by recording the noise. Next, record the drone. Then, record the ATMOS. Finally, record the pad. Mixer screen, you can adjust the level and pan for each track. So let's slightly adjust the pad. How was that? The preset patches we made today are available for download. If you're interested, I'll leave the link in the description, so be sure to get them and give them a try. The Ambient Preset Patch Collection brings together 4 types of layered patches: drone, pad, ATMOS, and noise into one palette. There are 9 palettes, a total of 36 sound patches. Each palette has been adjusted so you can use it with the looper right away. Of course, you can freely mix and match your favorite patches from different palettes. In fact, the sounds I created today are all picked individually from different palettes. Once you get used to it, it's fun to start with the preset sounds and make various adjustments. Sound design is one of the delights of the ELZ1 Play. So I hope you enjoy creating your own unique sounds. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching.